Yep. All right, we'll just give it a minute, let everyone get situated. All right, ready to get started? Okay, well, welcome everyone to today's Lunch and Learn series, How to Build a Stronger Professional Brand. Start here. And today we have, as you know, 3 stellar speakers on this topic, and definitely thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And so I wanted to just do a quick welcome to everyone. Many of you have already attended our Lunch and Learn series, but if you're new to this, welcome. And for those who are returning, thank you very much. And we definitely appreciate your feedback. And so today's Lunch and Learn program is hosted by the TIPS Law Practice and Legal Department Management Task Force, which Denise Damasio and I co-chair. And today's program is co-sponsored and led by the TIPS Women's Trial Lawyers Committee, and is also co-sponsored by the Outreach to Young Lawyers Committee, the Business Litigation Committee, and the Solo and Small Firm Task Force. And so if you'd like to learn more about our task forces or our committees, please let us know, or you can find us on the ABA Communities page. And so today's topic is certainly going to is an interesting one, and one that applies to all of us in terms of branding ourselves and rebranding ourselves. And so I'm sure that there will be many questions along the way. If you would, please put your questions in the chat box. It's a lot easier to monitor rather than raising your hand, but feel free to add your questions there. And today's webinar is set up as a Zoom meeting. And so what that means is that your video and you have access to your to activating or turning off your video and your audio. I would ask everyone to please, if you're not speaking, to please go ahead and mute yourself, and that will help the speakers and help with the background noise. But without further ado, you didn't come here to listen to me, and so you came to listen to these 3 experts on branding, and I'm going to go and turn this over to them. Anna, did you want to get started?
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. My name is Anna Romanskaya. I am very pleased to moderate this fabulous panel for you all this afternoon. I am a family law attorney, or as some may call it, a matrimonial lawyer based in San Diego, California. I'm a partner at a boutique law firm, Stark & D'Ambrosio, where I manage our family law division. My practice concentrates basically on everything having to do with marital law, so divorce, custody, support, property division. I sort of refer to myself as the ultimate trial lawyer because I'm always in court and I'm always on both sides of the issue. So it's appropriate that I'm moderating here between plaintiffs and defense side, because I'm kind of on both sides at all times, depending on the issue. So my perspective and the 2 cents that I will add when appropriate is from that perspective, when you're not really on a quote unquote side traditionally and having to look at the big picture. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce you to our 2 official panelists. We have Catherine Tanaka-Serbeck, Kathy, who is going to give us a bit of the plaintiff's perspective side on the topic. She started out her career for Travelers Insurance. She worked as a defense attorney at Rowell and Henderson, which is actually the home of our current TIPS chair, John McMeekin. And then she became a plaintiff's attorney in May of 1997 and remains one to this day. She represents injured workers in the Pennsylvania area, working with state claims as well as injured workers under the Longshore and Harbor Workers Compensation Act, which is on the federal side, and also applicants for Social Security disability. She works in primarily the personal injury space. Very, very welcome to Kathy. Super excited to have you here. And we are also joined by Victoria Alvarez, who is a litigator in the Charlotte, North Carolina office of Troutman Pepper, which is a large firm. So we're going to get the large firm defense perspective from her. Victoria represents businesses, big and small, from multinational corporations to local partnerships. She's an experienced litigator with a background in complex matters ranging from commercial actions, real estate disputes, international arbitrations, and premise, retail, and products liability. She's appeared in state, federal, and multi-district venues, and she's just all around awesome. So we have a really terrific think tank for you from varying perspectives, and are excited to give you some of our insight. Just logistically, if you have questions or comments or want to jump in, the format for this afternoon is going to be fairly casual. We're looking to have this be a discussion, less so a panel. So our goal is to talk with you, not talk at you. If you have comments, questions, please put them in the chat. That'll be the easiest way, and I will be monitoring it and incorporating your comments and questions as we move along. At the end, if we have some time, we can open it up for some direct comments from the audience, but during this hour, if you can just put your comments in the chat, and then I'll filter through it, and we'll just handle it like that. And again, the plan is to just kind of weave it as part of the discussion. So with that, I will get us started and look at the conversation we're having today about branding and marketing. And again, our goal is to give you a practical perspective from these varying practice areas on how you can hopefully implement into your own practice and get you thinking about what you do and how you do it, and maybe what you can perhaps do better. So big picture, now we're talking Kathy and Victoria, big picture, when we're talking about branding and marketing, I think, at least from what I've experienced and in my background, sometimes those two are confusing. Like, what's the difference, right, between branding, your own personal brand, versus marketing? And in my journey trying to understand it and implement it for myself, I've looked at branding as sort of my own internal distinguishing factor, right? What makes me or you stand out, versus marketing, which is how you ultimately put that distinguishing factor out there. So I'd love to hear from both of you on how you look at branding versus marketing and your thoughts on that.
I'll start. Happy New Year, everybody. I see some familiar faces. That's great to have all of you join us. We're really excited about this. So from my perspective, as Anna was saying, I'm a plaintiff's attorney in the personal injury arena, and I do state workers' comp, federal workers' comp, as well as Social Security disability work. The Social Security disability work kind of flows from my workers' comp practice, whether it be state or federal. And as far as branding is concerned, I work for a law firm named Freeman and Laurie. We have a long, long history in the maritime world. I mean, for those of you that are familiar with Admiralty Maritime law, Freeman and Laurie has a lot of, if you look back, has a lot of cases before the Supreme Court back in the day. And so part of the branding is my firm's name. People down on the water here in Philadelphia, Wilmington, up and down the East Coast know of my firm because we represented a lot of longshoremen over the years, and we represented their grandfathers, their fathers, their cousins. So, you know, when they get hurt in the water, what do they say? They don't say, call Kathy Sarbeck. They said, call Freeman and Laurie. And when they think of Freeman and Laurie, they think, okay, there's someone at that firm who's familiar with the Longshore Harbors Workers' Compensation Act and know what to do for us. So in that sense, that is the branding aspect. From a more personal perspective, when I get the case and I work it up, I develop a personal relationship with this person. And in the future, they might say, yeah, call Freeman and Laurie, but when you call her, ask for Kathy. She took care of me. She handled my case. She got me, my benefits. She helped me work through the system. So, when you have a firm that has a reputation of being an expert in a particular area, that's how it might initially come to your office. And when you get assigned the case, then from there, it's your responsibility to live up to that expectation that your firm has put out in the world, and B, do the best job you can for them. And as a result, you become part of the brand, and that's part of the marketing.
That's great, Kathy. Victoria, would you agree with that, or how do you handle branding, marketing piece?
I think of marketing as a verb and branding as a noun. So marketing, like Kathy said, is what you do, but branding is your firm. Your firm has complements each other, but you also have a personal brand. So I'm a big law commercial litigator, but I also focus on real estate, and I do it by being a competent attorney, but also someone that's friendly and I hope easy to work with. So that is your personal brand, and then you have your firm brand. But marketing are things like what your, for a larger firm, marketing team might do, or for everybody else, there's sponsorships. That's a form of marketing. Buying a print ad, posting on LinkedIn. Those are all the things you do to market your brand or your firm.
So how do you, as an attorney, and this really is for both of you, how do you distinguish yourselves in a firm setting where there's other lawyers? And I know, Kathy, you mentioned that personal connection and the way that you relate to your current clients, but how do you, and what feedback would you have for others who are thinking about ways to really distinguish themselves? Whether you're a younger lawyer, more seasoned lawyer, somewhere in between, how do you kind of find a way to really distinguish yourself among the mix, so that whether it's clients or potential growth opportunities arise, they look at you and distinguish you from everybody else?
Well, so my firm is on the smaller side. We have a dozen attorneys. We had been bigger. We've been a little smaller, but we're about a dozen now. So when I was a young attorney, I would always ask for work. I would always be available to work, and I would not. For my practice, you have some really big cases, and you have some really tiny cases, and you have some cases that you don't generate anything other than helping them get the bills paid, but it creates goodwill for the person who will then think of you when they have another injury, or somebody says, I need an attorney to help me something, and they'll say, oh, go to Kathy. She really helped me out. My case wasn't worth that much, but she took the time to take care of me. So the way my advice for attorneys is, every case matters, no matter what size it is, whether you're representing the small housekeeper or the CEO of some Fortune 500 company. Everybody deserves the best representation that you can give them. And when you treat them as such, it will flow. Treat them with respect, treat them with decency, give them the best care you can give them, and ask them about their families, or about their jobs, or what their aspirations are. Show them that you care a little bit about them, and they'll respond to you. You don't have to know their whole life story and all of their all their problems, but show them that you care a little bit. I mean, I find, and I'm sure Anna, you can speak to this, in my job, like I feel like half my time is being somebody's therapist or counselor, or listening to them. And sometimes people just want to know that you care. So I think, but also do what you're comfortable with. So if you're not really comfortable with like little chit chat, then don't, because people can feel if you're forcing something on them. Be natural in what you're comfortable with. One of my colleagues is very comfortable with sports analogies. That's how he relates to people. So he's always making sports analogies. That's fine also. So pick something that you're comfortable with that you can feel like you can relate with somebody.
Great feedback. Tori, would you have thoughts, other comments on how you make yourself stand out in your environment, your firm environment?
Sure. Well, Kathy, you're absolutely right. Client care and good work is its own branding and marketing. But to distinguish yourself, I think there's 3 levels that you have to think about on the firm level, but also regionally and then nationally. So nationally, we're all part of the American Bar Association. We're meeting people across the country. So step 1, we're doing it. Regionally, I think regionally there's more of a challenge because we practice in different states. We have different bar licenses, different practice areas. So it's actually, I think, easier to distinguish yourself nationally because I can be the commercial litigator in Charlotte, North Carolina, and maybe I'm the only one that some of you know. Regionally, you have to make more of a mark. And I think this also applies on a firm level. I think of it as having a major and a minor, something you really focus on, and then in your practice, and then something you have as sort of secondary. So I would say my major is representing commercial real estate developers and large breach of contract actions, but my minor is probably what a lot of us do is just more general commercial litigation, breach of contract, business torts. So getting yourself involved regionally and really focusing on that major and minor, both within your firm and within your area, I think that is how you distinguish yourself among a slew of other North Carolina litigators.
I want to just highlight something you mentioned that I think is really poignant, and that a lot of particularly younger lawyers and more seasoned lawyers tend to overlook, which is that specificity piece. A lot of times I found, and I don't know if you ladies would agree with me, but in kind of networking environments, when I'm meeting somebody new and I say, okay, oh, what type of work are you? And say, oh, I'm in litigation, I'm a litigator. And my mind goes to, that's nice. What does that mean? It's like saying the sky is blue. Because where I go to is, I don't know how to help you or how to refer business to you or really how to work with you at all, because litigation is so broad, right? Even if you say commercial litigation, it's just such a big topic. So your comment, Victoria, about adding some specificity to what you do, I think is a really important takeaway, because that allows whoever you're talking to about it, whether it's a potential client or a referral partner or a colleague, to really pinpoint and understand what it is that you do and what type of business you do and what type of clients you're looking for. So like in my world, for example, I'm a family law attorney, right? What does that mean? And if I say, well, I handle child custody issues where the parents are trying to figure out a custodial schedule, that gives more specificity rather than saying I do divorces. So that's, I would offer that as a takeaway of really thinking about, when you're thinking about your distinguishing factor and kind of that branding and marketing piece, about how you put yourself out there, and be really conscious about not just being overly general, but really allowing your audience, whoever that may be, to have a clear understanding of what it is that you do so they can ultimately help you.
And I just want to follow up what you said with regard to that. And I view it as 2 things. 1, there's a marketing of your client base, and 2, there's marketing of other attorneys, right? So for example, now if somebody reaches out to me and said, hey, do you know a family lawyer in California? I'll say, okay, what area? And they might say, oh, I don't know, Long Beach or something. But I might not know somebody in Long Beach, but I'll reach out to you, Anna, and say, hey, Anna, do you know any family lawyers in Long Beach that I can send somebody to? So I think the specificity argument is great when you're marketing yourself to other lawyers or creating your network. But I have found for my own personal clients that sometimes they view me for better or for worse as their attorney. So I had a client that I represented in a workers' comp case, and he had a matter in Richmond, Virginia, a criminal matter that he needed help with. So he called me. He was like, "Hey, can you help me find a criminal attorney?" So I said, "Sure, I can look into that." So I think it's just all, it depends on what you want to do. And I think you need to know your audience and who you're marketing to, whether it's your existing client base or other attorneys, or just people in the community, whether you're joining other organizations or, Victoria, I don't know if you're a member of commercial real estate networks or things like that, or Anna, you're part of your local family law division, right? Or your local bar association, or other things.
Well, so let's talk about that, about the kind of traditional marketing piece, right? So we have, and I know, Kathy, you mentioned a couple different avenues when we are trying to put out our brand, whether it's on behalf of ourselves or our firm or together, and kind of mention a couple different avenues. Obviously we're here as on behalf of the American Bar Association with tips. So that's the Bar Association route. There's other various avenues. What avenues have you both found to be especially effective for you personally when trying to put out your brand? And Victoria, maybe let's have you add some comments.
Sure.
Have you?
I was looking at, the ABA does a technology survey every year. I was looking at the 2020 survey. And 48% of, so the leading channel of marketing for all firms, sponsored on Facebook 33 and print 21. I just wanted to share that because I thought that was particularly interesting.
Victoria, I'm
for
sorry,
me,
you're
to
kind of
market
cutting in and
myself
out.
internally within the firm, we're over.
Sorry, it sounds like we're
Take it
having
up with ours. Sorry, go to Kathy. I'll see what I can do.
Okay, sorry about
right.
that. We'll try to work on the internet. Kathy, did you have some comments on that?
So I practice in the Philadelphia market. And for anybody who's familiar with the Philadelphia market, especially in the workers' comp arena, it's kind of like the wild, wild west, I like to describe. So when you're driving around, there's tons of billboards, there's tons of buses, they're all over the radio, there's firms all over the radio, there's firms all over TV during various sporting events. I'll be honest with you and tell you that my firm does not and cannot compete with that kind of advertising budget. I mean, I've heard rumors about how much it costs, and it's a lot of money. So that's not how we market. We market more traditionally. We have a website, we have a Facebook page, like Victoria was saying, and our marketing is very old-fashioned, kind of going out there, taking clients out, taking clients who have referred cases to us out, and just doing it more on the ground level. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time commitment. And there are people, in my firm who does it. For me personally, I have gotten my referrals through doing events like this, speaking events, publishing events, but nowadays it's more speaking events, and you'd be surprised of the calls I've gotten from people who have found me because they found a webinar that I presented, or they saw that I wrote something about something, and they'll call me and ask me questions. So I think as a young attorney, as an old attorney, and anywhere in between, it will be helpful to you if you're comfortable to speak when you're asked to speak, and to write when you're asked to write, because that gets your name out there, that gets your specialty out there, and it just shows that you're willing to extend your knowledge to other people.
That's great. So it sounds like your firm is more on the traditional marketing side. with that personal connection, and you look at for yourself to really go out and focus more on the one-on-ones,
Yeah.
right? Through that you ultimately get through your, shall we say, community involvement.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, and that's not to say we haven't had discussions about other avenues of marketing, because I'll be honest and tell you, I have no idea how to get onto TikTok. I don't even know how it works, but people mention, there's TikTok, there's all these other things. And, we're, in order to survive, for lack of a better word, you kind of have to pivot with the times, right? And figure out how to reach your client base. And that's one of the avenues. So we're going to have to explore it. And as our clients age and get older, and the younger generation comes in, they're less apt to turn to their cousin, grandfather, whoever. They might look to TikTok, to friends. So we have to figure out ways of being creative to reach people.
Right, and stay relevant.
To stay relevant.
Victoria,
Yeah.
are you with us?
Am I better?
Yes, there you are.
Okay. I'm in the office. I came in for the reliable internet, so I'm being let down. A sign I should have stayed home, I guess. So I was going to talk about internal marketing at a firm of over 1,000 attorneys. And a way that I have done that is to use LinkedIn. I think it's just as effective to stay connected with your colleagues across the country as it is to distinguish yourself within your firm. Another thing that especially a younger lawyer can do is whatever affinity group or organization, even if the firm just has a Peloton club and you ride together occasionally, whatever you can do to meet people in smaller chunks is effective, particularly some of the affinity groups, because then you get to meet associates and partners from across the country that you might not ordinarily meet in your day-to-day practice. But also accepting work and doing good work is the best way for a very junior associate to get their name out and to get introduced to different partners, and inevitably to get snapped up by a couple.
How do you, because you mentioned you work in an environment of over 1,000 lawyers, and really making yourself stand out, you as one individual among that group, take some work, right, and some creativity. What have you found? I know you mentioned LinkedIn, but what other resources or avenues have you found helps you stand out for getting those clients? And when you're thinking about perhaps the business development side, how have you kind of navigated that, and maybe what feedback do you have for maybe some of the folks that are listening in today who might be in a similar situation, trying to figure out how to make themselves stand out, whether they're junior or senior or somewhere in between?
Like Kathy mentioned, or perhaps like you, my internet was going out too, joining some of those industry organizations is the best way to meet people that you would want to do work for. But for, say, an attorney in their first or second or third year that maybe doesn't feel comfortable joining an industry organization, which I think you should do, but there's sort of ingratiating yourself with partners that have particular client relationships. So if you want to work for, Venki Development or whatever, reaching out to that partner, or doing a little investigation or discussion as to which associates are important to that partner, and just putting yourself out there and letting them know that you want to do that work. That is the best way you can sort of market yourself to the people who have work. And it takes sending some emails or making an excuse to talk to someone, but it's just something you have to think about. A lot of the larger firms have blogs. So for an associate, I would suggest writing an article. It can be short, like a page, and then sending it to the partner that you're looking for an excuse to talk to, and say, hey, I wrote this article. Would you like to co-author it with me? I would appreciate your input, and I'd love to work with you. And no partner is going to turn down a fully formed article and say, no, I don't want to co-author this with you. So that's a little bit of work on the front end that could have a big payoff.
Great. So our conversation's kind of leading into the idea of internal versus external marketing. And let's kind of hone in on that a little bit. So we're talking about, and some of the things you mentioned, Terry, is internally within your firm, how you can try to highlight yourself, right? Your own personal brand and market it. And Kathy, I don't know if you have any insight also. I know your firm is a smaller environment, but maybe how you kind of navigate internally and what you do, or maybe what you've seen other lawyers do to help them kind of navigate internally to make yourself stand out.
Well, and I mean, I think Victoria and I might be, repeating the same thing, but, first and foremost, you have to do really good work. So, kind of, what's the saying? Put your money where your mouth is. So, if you do the work, that will speak for itself. And then you kind of have to, and for some, when I was a younger attorney, it was a hard thing because it took me out of my comfort zone, but you kind of got to sell yourself a little bit, with your clients. So like for my practice in particular, when I have a settlement of a case and the person comes in for the settlement hearing and we have it approved, and I'll say, bid our goodbyes, wish them luck, and then you just make a pitch. Hey, think about me if you need something, or don't forget, I'm not encouraging to get hurt again in any way, shape, or form, but if that ever happens, remember, give me a call. If anybody needs something, just, I'm here for you, and I'll take care of you. So I think you have to take that next step to sell yourself at the end, just like a soft sell. You don't have to be in their face, but just remind them, hey, we've got a great outcome. Remember me if you need anything else. As far as Victoria was saying, my firm doesn't have a blog, but for those bigger firms that have a blog, that's a great way of distinguish yourself, because it's showing that you're kind of hustling a little bit. And I think as a more seasoned or a partner or a more seasoned person, you want to see somebody who's hungry and kind of hustling, because if they're hungry and looking for work, that they're going to go the extra mile for your client or for your case. And there's plenty of opportunities out there, even if you can't get yourself necessary published in your own firm for whatever reason. TIPS has a ton of opportunities for you to reach out and get yourself published. We have The Brief, we have a lot of publications that all of the committees are looking for newsletter content, right? So there's plenty of ways for you to distinguish yourself. And then you can put it out there. If you get something published in TIPS, you can send an email around to some people that you're trying to get their attention. Look what I drafted. Look what has been published, to distinguish yourself. So look, these are all great things. And let's be honest, there's only so much time in a day, right? So you have to try a few things, see what works, but then also try to narrow your focus down and have a couple of things you want to focus on and give it a try. And not everything has to cost money per se, but it's the sweat equity, right? It's the time that you put into things that matters. So, but as a person who has, a busy practice, a family, other things like that, you'll have to prioritize and see what works for you. And also, as Victoria said, don't be shy to reach out and try to find a mentor and find somebody to take under your wing and ask questions and ask them if you can shadow them and follow them around, and can I sit in on you talking to a client? Can I sit in on you doing a deposition? Are you taking somebody out? Can I attend that?
That's really great feedback. And I think what I hear is the main takeaway from both of your comments is you have to, in a sense, get out of your comfort zone maybe a little bit and put yourself out there and take those steps to highlight yourself, that you actually have to be proactive about it. Would you say that's the same with external marketing of yourself, so outside of your firm? I know we've kind of talked about bar association work and some social media with LinkedIn, but if you have any additional comments about how you can kind of take that energy that you were just talking about internally, and what efforts you found to be helpful externally, so outside of your firm, when you're putting your own personal brand out there into the big world. Victoria,
Yeah, I find LinkedIn to be fairly effective. So sending a friend request to someone you just met to follow up on a conversation. If after a conference you meet some people, just send them a message and tell them it was very nice to meet them. And that way, when you post something on your LinkedIn, the people you will meet will be, if they see you on their feed, will be reminded of you, and that'll keep you top of mind. And if you publish with one of the TIPS newsletters or with Tort Source or The Brief, you can post that article or other people's articles on your LinkedIn, and you can share other people's work and comment on people's posts. So that is sort of an organic way to keep you top of mind with folks that you might not have a chance to interact with other than online. And I have to make a pitch for Clearview Social. TIPS offers as a free member benefit an account with Clearview Social. And that way you can calendar your LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter posts in advance. And you can set it and forget it, and they will publish without you having to be on top of it. So if you know
put
you
that
have
in the-
a busy month coming up, you can arrange your LinkedIn posts. And I've been a little behind on that, admittedly, with the holidays, but that is available.
Can you put that in the chat, Victoria, what you were mentioning as a resource? Because that's a really great, there's a handful of different websites that allow you to do that, but it's a really great resource because I can tell you social media and management thereof is and could be time consuming, intimidating, depending on your comfort level with social media and technology in general. And on the LinkedIn side, LinkedIn actually has quite a bit of tutorials, like in-house, that are free, that you can take about how to best optimize LinkedIn and how to really capture it in a way to make it work for you as your own kind of digital Rolodex. And I know I've attended events where you've actually, instead of handing out cards, in particular now in, this COVID era, if you will, we have less maybe face-to-face interaction and more digital interaction. It's a way of still being able to share your contact information and maintain that level of connectivity without having to, have the physical card. So I would also, kind of piggybacking on Victoria's comments about LinkedIn in particular, encourage you all to look into the LinkedIn universe and look at the free tutorials that they have about how to optimize and best use. Kathy, have you found any resources that have been particularly helpful to you for your own marketing purposes outside your firm?
And I was going to piggyback on what you said about in this day and age of COVID. I think one of the biggest things that we are that we've realized is attending things in person. You just cannot beat that personal connection where you can have coffee with somebody or meet somebody even for 10 or 15 minutes. So I would encourage that when possible and when people are comfortable, I think that they should try to do as much in-person meetings as possible, because I have found that immediately following a conference is when I will pick up a new referral or I'll get a new case, and it's just that personal interaction. And also, as Victoria said, just to follow up with people, to after you meet with them, send them an email, give them a phone call saying, great to meet you, happy to help you with anything. And I don't have a big firm behind me or like a marketing team, but if you have one, I would definitely take advantage of whatever advice that they have to give to you, because that's part of their job, right? So if the resources are there, why not utilize it for yourself?
Yeah.
And like Anna said, look into LinkedIn, look into the free tutorials, things like that.
There are also resources that I will just throw out from the ABA. So all of us, right, we are members of TIPS and as a result the ABA. And now as part of your membership, you have free access to the Law Practice Division resources and the General Solo Practice Division resources. They put out quite a bit of resources on all things between technology and marketing and branding and everything in between. And so I would encourage you all to also look into those resources and really optimize your ABA membership, because we get all of that for free now, which I think is a really huge opportunity. So to kind of wrap up our discussion on this, both of you have mentioned when looking at marketing, branding, internally, externally, and just really thinking about this, the and I'll just call it the costs, and thinking about cost as a time consideration as well as perhaps financial. And so both of you are part of firms, some larger, some smaller, but if you can maybe talk about the cost factor, so both in terms of time, how much time you found branding yourself or putting yourself out there has involved, and maybe ways to be most efficient and effective. And also maybe from a financial perspective, if there's an investment that you've had to take on, and whether there's ways to make that, more efficient.
So,
Sure.
Victoria,
go
you
ahead.
want to take it first? Go ahead.
So it helps, it does take time to market yourself and to market your firm. So it's best to spend that time with measures you enjoy. So I like seeing all of you at conferences and on video calls. So that's how I spend some of my marketing time. And it's great to see friends, and it's awesome to see some of you signed in for this lunch and learn. So thank you. I like to go to sporting events, and I like to, I'd rather take some clients and their significant other out to like a basketball game than I would, sit down to a 3-hour dinner with a bottle of wine, which is sometimes very fun, but I would prefer to do something. So when I invite clients out, I like to suggest an activity. I don't mind, queuing up Clearview Social to post articles or to, repost interesting things I found, because I do spend time reading articles on the internet. So I spend some of my time that way. So I think whatever you do, like Anna said, it needs to come naturally, and it should be something you enjoy, because it does take time above your work day. And I think if you can involve your family and do things with, a client's family, or take your family to, if your firm can sponsor I'm involved in some charity organizations. If your firm can sponsor like a charity event or a volunteer event, and you can involve your family and, meet new people and invite clients that way, I think that's the best way to do it. Because we're all very busy.
I agree. And to follow up with that, it's not just time to market your clients. Like I spend my time, I come to the TIPS meetings. I've done it for a long time. I have a lot of great friends from it. From TIPS, I've met some other people and got involved with other organizations which have helped with my practice. I would say that do what you're comfortable with, do what comes naturally, and also take the time to help younger lawyers behind you, and be generous with your time when they call for advice and they're calling to work out a case, because I am a firm believer in paving the way for others behind me. So when you have an opportunity to get involved in putting on a conference or a seminar, please, don't shy away from that. And then also be active in recruiting people to speak for your various conferences and things like that, because some people don't know that there's an opportunity there. Some people want to be asked. Some people are just need a little nudge. And quite frankly, you don't want to hear the same person speak over and over again. So you want to provide other people. And, part of being a good marketer, I think, is to pull up others behind you. Not just yourself, but to promote your team. And I think that you have to spend time doing that.
So when you're thinking about the investment of time and your own resources, how do you, I guess, make the decision of where to focus your time? And I know both of you mentioned do something you enjoy and be involved in what makes you feel fulfilled to some extent. But how do you maybe navigate through that in a busy practice with demands from clients and your partners and your family and everybody in between? How do you make the decision of this is what I'm going to participate in versus this is where I'm going to spend my energy? I'm going to focus on LinkedIn versus maybe Facebook or TikTok or YouTube or whatever. And how do you make that decision? Maybe share some of your thought process.
So for me, there's a couple of conferences that I commit to going to every year because I've made the organization has made a commitment to me and I've made a commitment to the organization. So I've committed, I've spoken at those various conferences, I've helped plan them. So I make it, and then I can also say to myself, to my firm, hey, from going to these things, I brought in X amount of work from it. So I can quantify that. And the other part of that is I truly enjoy going to these various conferences because I have friends that I've made over the years that this is the one time we see each other. And that's something I enjoy. As an aside, I don't know if any of you know this, I was just in Orlando recently for a big conference put on by WCI, which is not something that I generally would go to as a plaintiff's attorney because it's quite a big defense juggernaut. I was shocked at the 2,500 people who attended this conference in COVID years. And I was told that this is mild and that under a normal year, it's 8,000 people running around this place, right? So for a defense person, you'll have to ask yourself, if I go to this and it's what, 3 or 4 days, what can I get out of it? And I have some friends who went as defense attorneys and they gave me their itinerary and they have breakfast, lunch, drinks. I mean, so they're meeting with 4 or 5 potential clients or existing clients in a 3 or 4 day span. For them, the time, not just monetarily, but their actual time is well spent because they've got to meet with 12 of their clients in person at this time. So, I think that's something that you'll have to decide, if you have X amount of monetary budget and X amount of time budget, where are you going to go that you're going to get, for lack of a better word, biggest bang for your buck, right?
We could do a whole spin-off discussion on how to focus on conferences and what organizations you should belong to. But I think of my time sort of in my marketing time in sort of 4 buckets: virtual, national, regional, local. So virtual, I do LinkedIn. I will sometimes author or co-author an article for our firm blog, but that does take quite a bit of time. That LinkedIn takes less. So that's my virtual choice. National is here, the AVA. Regional, I sit on a charity board and I'm fairly active in one section of our state bar because it's too much to belong to too many bar organizations. So I try to pick like a committee and be very involved in that committee rather than spread myself too thin. And maybe I'm not quite as successful at that as I should be, but that is the goal. And then locally, there's the county bar organization, or I sit on a local charity board and I like to do volunteer events with that. And it's something I enjoy doing, so it doesn't feel like work, but it also serves a second purpose that I get to meet new folks. So that is the four areas I think about it in. I think you could break that down in each bucket, but generally that's plenty.
And that's really good feedback on how to think about ways to kind of catalog your time, because it does get stressful, or it could get stressful, and especially if you are in an environment that maybe doesn't have a marketing team or maybe you're in a smaller firm that doesn't have a budget for you. And maybe you're in an environment that doesn't give you credit for your non-billable time that you spend doing all of this business development. And thinking about your own personal your own personal journey, right? And what you're trying to get out of it and how to build yourself up, whether it's in your current environment or for a future environment, setting yourself up. The one thing that I have seen that could either be a huge success or a huge fail is if you are spreading yourself out too thin and you join a bunch of different commitments, right? Whether it's bar associations or local charities or nonprofits or meetup groups, I mean, whatever it may be, and you just become a joiner, and then you don't have the time or capacity to then actually follow through with all the commitments that you have signed up for. And that could really be a huge detriment to your reputation, right? And that brand that you're trying so hard to establish. And especially I've seen this in professionals who are either trying to pivot their practice, maybe go from being in-house to now being at a firm, or vice versa, and really trying to pivot the way that they're interacting and marketing themselves, where they get involved in a bunch of different stuff, but then they don't follow through or don't show up, or end up being known as that person that's just a joiner but doesn't actually do anything. So that's kind of my 2 cents, if you will, of what I've observed that can backfire sometimes, and be just cautious about when you're thinking about ways to put yourself out there. I know we are about 5 minutes out. Deborah, you put out, how often should we be evaluating or reassessing our marketing and branding strategies? That's a really good question. So ladies, you have comments on that? That's a good wrap-up question too. So how often should we be evaluating or reassessing our strategies? Victoria, your thoughts?
Maybe it's part of your New Year's resolution process, or toward the end of your fiscal year or something. But I think it should be an ongoing conversation with yourself about whether something you're doing is really serving you, because there's no point in dying chained to your sunk costs. If something is not enjoyable, or if you're not really meeting as many people as you want to, or if you just feel like you're screaming to the void, stop doing it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's always room for improvement, right? So like I said, I have no idea how TikTok works. I'm going to have to ask my kids to show me how it works, because someone mentioned it to me. But if something you're doing is working, that's fabulous. I would look at it and say, you know what, how can I make it work better? Like, what can I do to tweak it to make it a little bit more, how can I be more efficient? And if something you tried is not getting you anywhere, then, writing a check to some organization just to write a check is not going to do you any good. It's not going to make you stand out. And as Anna said, don't just join to join, but join because you're passionate about it or you want to do something. And I think the other thing I would say is, you know what? Remember, it's okay to say no too. I mean, I'm probably, if you ask people who know me, like, that's probably, I don't take my own advice sometimes, but you do get overextended and you do not have the time. So if someone comes to you and says, hey, can you write this, or can you help plan this, or can you speak here? And it's okay to say, you know what, I really don't have the time, but I have the perfect person to help you. Victoria would be great enough, to help you, or Anna can help you. And if they can't, they can find somebody to help you. So I think that, you don't want to overpromise and underperform, or and that might do you more harm than good.
Yeah, I would echo all of those comments, and kind of, again, in closing, really encourage you all to think about your priorities. And when it comes to figuring out what your brand is, right? What your distinguishing factor is. What is that one thing that makes you, or maybe a few things that make you unique, and efforts in how to put that out there, and then in the context of your capacity, right? In addition to doing good work, in addition to being the lawyer that you need to be in order to actually sustain whatever business and prestige that you ultimately obtain through all of these efforts, and really think about how to best use your time and the resources that you have and evaluate. And that's something that is challenging, and something that you know, speaking of time, I would suggest you put some time into thinking about your priorities and align whatever activities you ultimately choose to do to reach those goals with what makes you be true to yourself. You know, to kind of piggyback on what Kathy and Victoria were saying throughout, the theme is be genuine, right? Stay true to yourself. If you're not someone who's comfortable making those sports analogies in your conversations with clients, don't do it, because it's going to be fake and forced. And your audience, whoever that might be, is going to feel that and see that. So figuring out what your personal style is part of this process. We have a couple minutes. If either ladies have any closing thoughts, any comments on these topics, and if anyone from the audience has any comments or thoughts, you can open it up.
I'll add something.
Hi, Laura.
everybody.
Hi, Lauren.
Hey, Lauren.
Great presentation. Thank you. Some really great advice from some really knowledgeable people. So thank you for sharing. I'll share one other personal experience, and that is that my by far largest revenue client through the years is a client that I actually had to try to case against. After that case, they started sending me the work. And my suggestion is that treat everybody with respect and professionalism, including the opponents, the opposing lawyer and the opposing party. It's the right thing to do. And frankly, it's a great form of marketing, because if you're a good lawyer and you do a good job, you're professional, and you treat people with dignity and respect, they want you to be their lawyer next. Sometimes you see other lawyers just treating you or your client, the adversary, as if they're diseased, and it should never be that way. We're all just doing a job and doing the best that we can do, and we should treat everybody with appropriate respect. And you'd be surprised how that could turn into work down the road as well.
That's great. Thank you so much, Lauren.
Hey, well, we're at the top of the hour. So I'm Denise Damasio, the co-chair of the Legal Department and Law Practice Management Task Force, along with Debbie. Really want to thank our panelists, Anna, Kathy, and Victoria, for all of their comments and the importance of making connections, nurturing relationships, and how to distinguish ourselves. And Lauren, your comments at the end about providing respect to everyone, and how the payoff for that, not only as a part of humanity, but also as a part of, it can have an impact on business. Debbie and I would like to thank the TIPS staff, Norma Campos, and all of the TIPS staff for helping us put on this Lunch and Learn, as well as the Women's Trial Lawyers, who is the co-sponsor of this program, along with Solo Small Firms and Business Litigation and Outreach to Young Lawyers. We do these Lunch and Learns every other month, and we're glad to have you with us. But for the panel, fantastic, and thank you. Debbie?
Yep, thank you all very much, and great presentation, and thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
weekend.
you. Hopefully we'll see you in Seattle.